The warp screamed, not with rage, not with pain, but with laughter. It began as a ripple, a low chuckle beneath the howling madness of eternity, then grew into a roaring cackle that tore through the fabric of unreality. Demons stopped mid-slaughter. Imperial storms froze mid-surge. Even the echoes of dying souls hesitated, as if the immaterium itself had heard something it could not understand, a joke that defied the cosmic rules of horror and despair. A tear appeared in the void, jagged and bleeding colors that didn't belong on any spectrum known to mortal eyes. Through it tumbled a figure in red and black, limbs flailing, muttering something about wrong franchise before landing with a wet crunch atop a floating skull the size of a cathedral. The skull drifted across a river of molten thought, its eye sockets glowing faintly as it tried, and failed, to comprehend what had just fallen upon it. The figure straightened, brushed himself off, and looked around. "Okay," he muttered, voice muffled by his mask. "So this looks like if hell and a metal album cover had a baby. Cool, aesthetic, kinda moody, someone's compensating." The landscape sprawled endlessly, an ocean of nightmares and half-formed gods. Mountains of bone rose and collapsed in slow motion. The sky was stitched together from torn dreams, flickering like dying film reels. And in this impossible place, where thought and madness were the same thing, the figure in red stood perfectly still. Deadpool, mercenary, fool, survivor of countless universes, grinned behind his mask. So, who painted everything grimdark? Around him, demons stirred. Great horned things with armor made of screaming faces. Serpentine horrors that slithered through the air, dripping ichor that burned without fire. One massive creature, a blood-soaked beast of corn with tusks like towers, roared and charged. Deadpool raised a single hand. "Stop, hammer time." The demon froze mid-lunge, confusion shattering its murderous focus. Even the warp itself seemed unsure how to process what had just been said. Deadpool circled the frozen monster, poking it in the shin with the end of his sword. "Wow, you're like a boss fight before the tutorial. Big mistake, buddy." He tilted his head, squinting at the creature's blood runes. "Wait, do you guys even have dialogue options here?" Blinked twice for yes. The sky cracked open. The laughter that had summoned him returned, but this time it wasn't his. It came from everywhere, from the rivers of despair, from the skulls, from the air itself. The laughter was older than humanity, older than stars. It was the laughter of gods who had never known mercy. "Who dares mock the IMMATRUM?" the voice thundered, shaking the horizon apart. Deadpool looked up, tapping his chin thoughtfully. "Oh great, the narrator's back. Listen, omniscient voice, I get it, you're spooky. You probably smell like sulfur and unwashed fan theories, but you might want to turn down the reverb. The audience is getting tinnitus." 1,000 eyes opened across the horizon, blinking in disbelief. Demons crept back, whispering in languages that flayed sanity. The air thickened, heavy with meaning, reality congealing like tar, but Deadpool didn't flinch. He adjusted his katanas, stretched his shoulders, and sighed. "Man, you'd think after all the fourth walls I've broken, one of them would come with a snack bar." Then something strange happened, something that even the warp noticed. For a flicker of a moment, behind the jokes and chaos, there was quiet. Deadpool's eyes, hidden beneath his mask, softened. He looked out at the endless void, and a trace of something human, something weary, surfaced. He whispered to himself, almost tenderly, "You think you're crazy? You've never met me on a bad day." The warp rippled like a wounded animal. Colors inverted, sound reversed. Deadpool moved fast. He drew his blades and they glitched, flickering between steel, plasma, and comic sketch lines. With a grin, he sliced open the air itself, rewinding reality like a broken VHS tape. Demons dissolved into static. The screaming rivers flowed backward. In a heartbeat, everything reset. Deadpool landed again on the same floating skull, dusting himself off. "Take two," he muttered. "Less hellfire, more cool intro music." He turned, staring directly past the veil of the universe, directly at us. "You guys still watching? Don't worry, lore dump coming soon. I just need to find the big guy on the shiny chair. Emperor something. Guy's probably cranky. Hasn't seen sunlight in 10,000 years." The void trembled. The laughter stopped, not silenced by force, but stunned. Then, slowly, another voice emerged, colder and older. "You do not belong here." Deadpool shrugged. "Neither does logic, buddy, and yet here we are." A tendril of darkness slithered from the sky, thicker than a planet's spine, ending in an eye the size of a moon. It lunged. Deadpool vanished, reappeared, sliced, teleported again. Every movement left dozens of afterimages, all talking, all narrating, all mocking the attack with running commentary. "Oh look, a tentacle, never seen that trope before," one shouted. "Someone call Seathul who's lawyer," yelled another. The warp faltered. Its physics, its meaning, its terror, all of it began to unravel beneath his absurdity. Demons turned to echoes. Flames became laughter tracks. Even the ancient voice began to glitch, breaking into fractured syllables of disbelief. Then silence. In the heart of the broken void, Deadpool stood alone, surrounded by floating debris, fragments of forgotten worlds, shredded prayers, and the remains of things that were never meant to exist. He looked around, tilted his head, and tapped something invisible in the air, as if pressing a screen. "All right, audience poll," he said softly. "Do I go toward the spooky laughter planet or the shiny do not enter sign over there? Leave a like to vote." The sign flared. The laughter came back, but softer now, almost entertained. "There is something difficult to predict about you." Deadpool smiled behind the mask. "Yeah, that's the nicest thing anyone said to me in this timeline." The tendril withdrew. The rift began to close, but something else stirred within, deeper, older, darker than even the gods of chaos. Something ancient had heard the joke, something that hadn't laughed since creation itself. And as the tear sealed shut, a new sound echoed across the warp, not rage, not agony, but laughter, real laughter, the kind that doesn't end, the kind that spreads. For the first time in all eternity, the warp had learned to laugh. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The light of the astronomicon wavered. Across the galaxy, astropaths clutched their heads as the psychic beacon of humanity's God Emperor stuttered like a broken signal. On Terra, the throne room groaned beneath the weight of 1 billion souls whispering prayers at once. Golden walls lined with saints and skulls pulsed faintly as though the stone itself were breathing. And then, without warning, the laughter returned. Not through speakers, not through vox relays, but through reality itself, bleeding into the heart of the Imperium. A low hum rippled through the palace, shattering ritual silence. Servoskulls spun aimlessly, candles flickered blue, and Mechanicus priests began screaming in binaric tongues. Somewhere within the endless corridors, the doors of the Sanctum Imperialis creaked open, an event no one could explain, for they were sealed by mechanisms no mortal hand could move. A figure stepped through, humming off-key, dragging his boots across the marble. His armor wasn't gold or ceramite or blessed by the Omnissiah. It was red, scratched, and covered in graffiti. "Okay, so either this is a cathedral or the world's worst IKEA," Deadpool said, walking through the Hall of Relics, flicking at the floating icons. "No bathrooms, no snacks. 10 out of 10 for interior design, though love the skull motif. Really says overcompensating space pope." Custodians were the first to react. Towering warriors in gold stepped forward, halberds gleaming, eyes burning with psychic light. "Identify yourself, intruder," one commanded, voice deep enough to make the marble quake. Deadpool stopped mid-step, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, shiny boys, don't shoot. I'm just here to meet the Emperor. I heard he's like top-tier NPC energy." When the custodian lunged, Deadpool pulled something from behind his back, not a gun, not a sword, but a laminated card that read in bold letters, "Plot armor pass, authorized character, please do not delete." The weapon stopped inches from his throat, vibrating, glitching. Sparks of unreality burst across the chamber as the laws of causality hiccuped. "What heresy is this?" another custodian growled, but his voice was warped, his words looping like a corrupted data file. Deadpool leaned in, whispering, "Don't worry, buddy, it's not you, it's the script." Then, with a casual tap on the custodian's chest plate, he sent the warrior frozen in mid-frame, like a paused cutscene. "Orwa, look at you, all stoic and golden. You'd make a killer action figure." Behind him, the colossal doors to the throne itself opened, not by command, not by power, but by narrative will. The air inside was thick with incense and despair. Tens of thousands of chanting Adeptus Custodes knelt in perpetual worship, surrounding the colossal mechanism that held the Emperor's corpse-like form in place. Cables thicker than starship masts pulsed with psychic energy, feeding the half-dead god whose mind stretched across the galaxy. Deadpool walked forward, mask tilted up slightly, gaze tracing the impossible scale of it all. "Oh, wow," he whispered. "It's like a sci-fi life support system made by a necromancer. You guys sure this is legal?" Lightning flashed across the chamber, not real lightning, but psychic backlash, the mind of the Emperor reacting to intrusion. Demons, unseen by mortals, howled in fury at the trespasser's presence. Reality bent. Deadpool's outline flickered between dimensions, his voice overlapping with echoes of himself. "Wait, wait, wait," he said, waving at the storm. "Don't fry me, your holiness. I just came to say hi. Love your work. 10,000 years of sitting still. That's some real dedication, me. I can't even sit through a podcast." Then silence. For the first time in millennia, something stirred within the golden throne. The psychic fire that had burned endlessly without change flickered once, twice, then steadied into a faint, golden pulse. The Emperor's ruined eyes, sealed beneath centuries of dust and ritual, twitched. The air trembled as his will, vast beyond comprehension, focused on the absurd little figure standing before him. "You are not of this universe," came the voice, not spoken aloud, but burned directly into the mind. Deadpool nodded cheerfully. "Yep, multiversal tourist. Love what you've done with the place. Kinda wish there was more color, though. Everything's beige death." The Emperor's will lashed outward, a psychic blade that could shatter worlds. It struck Deadpool square in the chest and passed through him. Reality glitched again. 1,000 possible futures flickered like broken frames. In one, Deadpool turned to dust. In another, he turned into a saint. In another, he was just a doodle on the Emperor's hand. Each outcome cancelled the next. The warp screamed in frustration. "What are you?" the Emperor thundered, shaking the heavens. Deadpool tilted his head. "I'm complicated. Think of me as a cosmic error with good marketing." The custodians, still frozen around the room, began to weep blood as the psychic energy of confusion spread. Some faintly heard laughter echoing from the warp, the same laughter that had followed Deadpool since his arrival. Even the Emperor paused, sensing it. Something beyond chaos, beyond order, was listening, watching. Deadpool stepped closer to the throne, lowering his voice. "You ever think maybe you're just a character in someone's story, that maybe all of this, the gods, the heresy, the galaxy-spanning drama, is just one long joke that forgot to end?" For a moment, the Emperor, the master of mankind, hesitated. A flicker of memory, a young man named him, mortal once, dreaming of uniting humanity, a whisper of doubt, then rage, vast and cosmic. The air ignited, the walls shook, and the psychic beacon of the Astronomicon flared across the galaxy like a dying sun. Deadpool stood unfazed, arms crossed. "Yikes, tough crowd." He reached out and tapped one of the golden cables connecting the Emperor to the machine. The entire system sparked, reality bending around the contact. For a single instant, the Emperor saw himself not as a god, not as a savior, but as a drawing, ink on paper, a story told and retold by things beyond his control. And in that instant, he understood the joke. Across the galaxy, a billion psychers screamed as the Emperor of mankind, the beacon of human faith, did something unthinkable. He laughed, once, quietly, but it was enough to shake eternity. Deadpool grinned behind his mask, bowing dramatically. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll be here all week. Try the corpse starch, it's killer." Then he vanished, swallowed by a sudden distortion, leaving behind only echoing laughter and a single question hanging in the Emperor's mind. Who laughs at gods and survives? The Eye of Terror pulsed like a wound that refused to heal, a crimson storm of screaming light and sentient shadow devouring half the stars of the segmentum obscurus. Here, gravity was suggestion, time was performance art, and every breath was a negotiation with madness. Yet from the edge of that abyss came a sound no demon had ever heard before, a whistle, a jaunty, off-key tune cutting through the psychic shriek of 10,000 dying worlds. Deadpool drifted through the void on a makeshift skateboard made from a demon's severed wing bone. Behind him trailed a chain of glowing emojis, literal fragments of thought leaking from his unstable mind, painting the warp with absurd graffiti. Every few seconds, he reached out to poke the swirling edges of reality, muttering, "Okay, so this is basically Satan's lava lamp. Got it, but where's the boss level?" Below him, entire demon worlds rotated, living planets sculpted by chaos itself. Mountains bled rivers of memory, skies changed color with each lie told upon their surface. One world was made entirely of books, tomes screaming their own names, and on it, Tzeentch's crystal towers gleamed like knives. Deadpool stopped Medea, crouching as if to get a better cinematic shot. "Oh yeah," he whispered. "That's the one. Mr. Bird Wizard's House of Fun." With a pop and a splash of digital distortion, he appeared at the gates of the planet of sorcerers. The air was thick with impossible geometries, staircases that led nowhere, runes that ate light, music made of reversed prayers. Thousands of demons watched him approach, each one a shifting puzzle of wings, masks, and eyes. "A mortal," one hissed. "A joke," said another. "A glitch," muttered a third. Deadpool grinned. "All of the above, fellas. Now take me to your weird feathery boss before I start narrating your existential problems." They didn't move, they couldn't. The laws of this place had no script for him, so he just strolled past them, humming, twirling his swords like drumsticks. The golden spires of Tzeentch's fortress rose ahead, twisting and reshaping themselves with each step he took. He reached the entrance, an archway made from the bones of broken prophecies, and shouted, "Knock, knock. Multiversal delivery for Mr. Featherface, signature required." The doors opened on their own. Inside, the air shimmered with colors unnamed by any mortal tongue. Tzeentch's throne loomed at the far end of the chamber, a colossal mass of feathers, faces, and fire. The changer of ways observed the intruder through 1,000 eyes, each reflecting a different version of reality. "You are not written," Tzeentch whispered, his voice layered in a chorus of infinite contradictions. "You are not supposed to exist." Deadpool shrugged. "Yeah, that's kinda my thing. I'm like a bad sequel nobody asked for me, but here I am." The god of fate leaned forward, the weight of his knowledge pressing against the mortal's fragile body. "You are unpredictable. Even I cannot see your threads. You exist outside causality, beyond design." Deadpool tilted his head. "So basically, I'm your midlife crisis." The warp flickered again, Tzeentch's form glitching like a broken image. Around them, symbols unspoke themselves. Prophecies inverted. Time stuttered. Tzeentch tried to focus on the mercenary's mind, to map it, to categorize it, but what he found was something horrifying. Endless layers of irony, nonsense, pain, self-awareness, and joy. Each thought contradicted itself perfectly. To the Lord of Change, it was pure chaos, but not his kind. "What are you?" Tzeentch hissed, every voice trembling between fascination and dread. Deadpool smiled beneath his mask. "I'm the punchline the universe forgot to write." He walked toward the throne, unbothered by the cosmic energy pouring off it. From his belt, he pulled out something glowing, a shard of light shaped like a heart, beating faintly. "Found this outside," he said. "Fell off one of your demon princes. I think it's his soul thingy, looked collectible." The moment the shard entered the chamber, the warp convulsed. Every demon within 1,000 leagues screamed. The shard was not just a fragment, it was essence, a condensed piece of pure chaos energy. Tzeentch's gaze flared brighter, talons reaching forward. "Give it to me." Deadpool juggled it idly, finders keepers. The shard pulsed faster, reacting to his touch. Reality around them began to tear like wet paper. The laws of magic, probability, and narrative twisted into Möbius loops. Tzeentch tried to reclaim it, but it resisted even him, reshaping under Deadpool's influence into something new, something absurd. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Deadpool said, staring as the shard turned into a glowing, beating whoopee cushion. The changer of ways froze. His tower collapsed inward, then reformed as a giant, laughing clown face. The demons began to melt, not in pain, but in laughter. They convulsed, their forms unraveling as joy, pure, alien joy, infected them like a virus. Deadpool laughed too, spinning the cushion on one finger. "Oh, I get it now. You guys worship chaos, right? But all your chaos has rules, blood for the blood god, change for the change god, blah, blah, blah. But this," he waved the cushion, "this is true chaos. No agenda, no prophecy, just nonsense. Delicious, world-breaking nonsense." Tzeentch screamed, a sound made of collapsing universes, and vanished in a burst of blue fire. The planet of sorcerers quaked, towers toppling, demons dissolving into neon mist. Deadpool stood amidst the wreckage, dusted himself off, and muttered, "Welp, I think I just became a meme in the warp." He looked up. Across the skis of the Eye of Terror, a ripple spread not of fire or corruption, but of laughter. Even the other Chaos gods turned their gaze toward the anomaly. Khorne roared in outrage. Nurgle chuckled approvingly. Slaanesh giggled with intrigue. And somewhere deep within the warp, something new began to take shape, a presence forming from Deadpool's influence. It laughed with every voice and none, a reflection of absurdity given form. Deadpool felt it stir and frowned slightly. "Oh no, did I just make a god?" He looked around, tapping the side of his head. "Bad Deadpool, you know what happened last time." The laughter echoed again, louder this time, shaking the Eye of Terror to its core. Stars bent, demons fled, and Deadpool, standing in the center of it all, sighed. "Well, guess that's one way to trend in the multiverse." Then, as the eye flared brighter, he whispered to himself, "Can madness infect the mad?" The question hung in the air like smoke, and the warp, for once, had no answer. Something new began to take shape in the roiling madness of the warp, a flicker that wasn't hunger, nor rage, nor lust, nor scheming intent. It began as a joke told too many times, an echo that shouldn't have existed, laughter looping infinitely until it gained mass, voice, and shape. Demons trembled as the sound rolled through the immaterium like thunder wearing a clown's grin. Where once the dark gods warred for souls and meaning, now there came something that made no asterisk sense at all, and that was precisely why it terrified them. Deadpool stood atop a floating cathedral made of bones, gazing at the surreal storm below. "Oh look, it's me but metaphysical," he said, watching a ripple of crimson energy stretch outward, forming a smiling mask of chaos that shimmered with comic panels and flickering text bubbles. "Finally, a god who gets my sense of humor." He raised his arms theatrically. "Ladies, gentlemen, and horrifying soul-eating entities, I give you, me asterisk, but with better lighting." The new power pulsed in response, vibrant, colorful, and wrong. It was neither demon nor divinity, but a paradox wearing the skin of both. Across the galaxy, psychers screamed as visions of red and black flooded their minds, a figure laughing at the universe, scrawling over fate itself with ink that burned like plasma. The Inquisition declared entire systems heretical before they even understood what they were seeing. On Craftworld Ulthway, far-seeing farseers whispered to one another in dread. "Segorach has found a rival," one murmured, "or perhaps a reflection." Deadpool felt it, the new god wasn't apart from him. It was him, given shape by the warp's reaction to his absurdity. The Harlequin of Paradox, as the Eldar would name it, was a being of laughter that cut deeper than any blade. It fed not on despair, but on irony, on the absurdity of everything the Grimdark had ever stood for. Where there had only been faith, there was now punchline. Where there had been destiny, there was now a joke. The warp rippled with comic panels made real, brief flashes of impossible scenes, each one breaking the rules of its own existence. Space Marines found speech bubbles hovering over their heads. Orks stopped mid-battle to argue with unseen narrators. Chaos Lords reached for demonic power only to find rubber chickens. Even the Necrons, soulless, ancient, and logical, began glitching as reality strained to decide whether it was still a tragedy or had become a parody. Deadpool watched with unholy delight. He hacked into Imperial broadcasts, turning grim sermons into cartoon sketches. "Heretics, mutants, and Xenos, tune in next week for Purge Patrol 40K." His voice echoed across Vox channels, accompanied by laugh tracks that made tech priests faint. He painted smiley faces on statues of saints, drew crude doodles on Imperial edicts, and dropped memes into the Mechanicus archives like grenades. And yet, somewhere beneath the chaos and noise, there was a vibration, the hum of something ancient waking up. The warp had tolerated every sin and nightmare imaginable, but never this, never mockery. For in the dark heart of the cosmos, mockery was the one thing the gods could not abide. In the Immaterium's core, Tzeentch's endless eyes blinked and blinked again, unable to read what it saw. Khorne roared, his fury deafened by laughter. Slaanesh whispered, intrigued yet disgusted, while Nurgle merely chuckled and wept, not understanding why he suddenly had a whoopee cushion for a throne. The old order of madness was unraveling, because laughter, true laughter, was not something they controlled. It was freedom, and freedom was poison. Then the laughter grew louder. Deadpool's reflection stepped forward from the warp's surface, wearing the same red suit, but his mask was cracked, a god's grin underneath. "You think you're the one writing this, Wade?" the being asked, its voice overlapping 1,000 tones. "No, no, no, the joke's on you. You're just the punchline I used to get here." Deadpool blinked. "Okay, that's creepy, also rude, also totally something I would say." He pointed a gun at the reflection, but the bullet turned into a cartoon bang sign before it fired. The paradox entity laughed, a sound that bent stars and split planets. "This universe runs on despair. You introduced humor, you infected it. Now look." Reality stuttered. The sky above Terra shimmered, turning into sketch lines for a moment before snapping back. Space Marine banners flickered like television static. The Emperor's psychic wards crackled. Across the galaxy, every world began to sense the infection, not a plague of death, but of awareness. People began noticing they were characters in a story. Soldiers hesitated mid-battle, suddenly unsure if their actions mattered. Servitors looked up from their endless tasks and whispered, "Is this scripted?" Deadpool grinned uneasily, watching the multiverse tremble. "Oh crap, I broke the tone." The Harlequin of Paradox stepped closer, shadows warping into bright panels of color and text. "You didn't break it," it said softly, its grin expanding beyond logic. "You made it self-aware, you made it funny, and now everything's dying from the irony." The warp began to collapse inward, folding like paper set aflame. Every laugh now tore reality further apart. The Harlequin's mask spread across the cosmos, a god of meta-awareness feeding on contradictions. Deadpool, realizing the scale of what he'd unleashed, tried to back away. "All right, time out. I wanted chaos, not existential implosion." But the universe wasn't listening. And somewhere, buried beneath layers of psychic machinery, a spark of ancient will stirred on the golden throne. The Emperor's voice, silent for 10,000 years, whispered a single word into the void. "Enough." The laughter faltered. The god of paradox turned its gaze toward Terra. Deadpool froze, a sudden chill running through his blood. For the first time in his infinite life of jokes, the punchline didn't feel funny anymore. And then, like the pause before the final laugh, the warp held its breath. The galaxy shuddered like a wounded animal. Every star, every ship, every soul vibrated with the echo of the Emperor's whispered "enough." It wasn't a word, it was a verdict, a sentence cast across existence. The warp convulsed, as if the concept of laughter itself had been declared heresy. Deadpool looked up, feeling that golden light pierce through the immaterium like a spear made of judgment. The comic panels that fluttered around him like butterflies turned to ash. The soundtrack stopped. Even the fourth wall held its breath. Reality began to reassert itself, painfully. Across the Imperium, the chaos Deadpool had unleashed started burning away. The memes turned to fire. The smiley faces melted from marble. Vox transmissions reverted from comedy sketches to death hymns. The grimdark tone of the galaxy clawed its way back with rage. The Imperium of man, built on despair and worship, refused to be mocked any longer. Deadpool stumbled through the collapsing warpscape, the laughter god's mask flickering in and out beside him. "Hey Goldie, I was just having fun," he shouted, waving his katanas at the distant psychic light. "You ever heard of comic relief? You people need it." The only reply was the sound of billions of souls screaming in perfect sync as the Emperor's will swept outward like a tidal wave of divine fire. Whole demon worlds were silenced. The laughter stopped. Then came the retaliation. The warp itself bled into the materium, not as invasion, but as purge. From Terra's surface, the Emperor's psychic might lash through reality, severing anything tainted by Deadpool's influence. Star systems flickered out like dying candles. Custodians marched through the ruins of laughter, their golden armor reflecting a light that burned irony to dust. In the eye of terror, demons turned to statues mid-grin, their expressions frozen in mockery they could no longer feel. Deadpool looked around and sighed. "Well, guess the punchline's over." He brushed soot from his shoulder. Or is it? Because even as the Emperor's fury swept the stars, something else was rising, the resistance of reality itself. Deadpool's infection hadn't just spread through the warp, it had seeped into causality. Space Marines found their sacred litanies rewritten with one-liners. Imperial sermons contained subtle sarcasm. Even the Adeptus Mechanicus began asking dangerous questions like, what if the Omnissiah was just a metaphor? The very fabric of the Grimdark narrative was unraveling from within. The Emperor, sensing this, summoned his psychic sons, not by voice, but by instinct. Across space and time, the Primarchs stirred. Some, like Guilliman, saw the creeping absurdity and wept in fury. Others, like Angron, howled in confusion as their rage met punchlines that refused to die. And from the shadows of forgotten battlefields, others rose: Horus, Fulgrim, Magnus, their ancient sins momentarily forgotten as the universe itself turned into a cosmic joke they couldn't comprehend. They converged in visions upon Terra's psychic plane, 12 titans of history staring into the abyss where Deadpool stood. Guilliman's voice thundered, "You are a contagion." Angron roared, "You mock everything we are." Magnus, however, only watched in fascination. "He breaks the fourth wall," he murmured, "and in doing so he breaks fate." Deadpool twirled his sword and grinned. "Oh, come on, guys, you're all so serious. You'd think with all your daddy issues, someone would have invented therapy by now." Guilliman lunged, his blade crackling with psychic energy, but when it struck Deadpool, the sound wasn't steel, it was a comic sound effect. Clang, the letters appeared Medea neon bright. Angron swung next, his chain axe roaring, and the words "Angry Man Smash" exploded across the scene like graffiti. Each attack only deepened the absurdity. Every attempt to kill him just made the story more self-aware. Then, amid the chaos, Deadpool saw him. Kneeling in the ruins of a battlefield that might have been Cadia, or might have been a memory, was another Deadpool. Same armor, same swords, but the mask was torn, the body broken. His eyes glowed faintly beneath the cracks. He wasn't joking. He wasn't moving. He was simply tired. Deadpool froze. The noise, the chaos, the collapsing cosmos, it all dimmed. He approached slowly, crouching beside his alternate self. "Hey buddy, you okay?" The broken Deadpool coughed, metallic blood spilling between his teeth. "You shouldn't have come here." "Why not? You're me. I'm hilarious." "No," the other one's voice was raw, quiet, fragile. "You're not supposed to exist here. I was written into this universe once. As a soldier, as a joke. They made me serious. I died trying to fit their story." Deadpool blinked. "Wait, they made you Grimdark." "I tried to laugh," the dying version whispered, "and the universe killed me for it." His eyes dimmed, fading like the last panel of a comic strip. "You can't beat this place, WAAAGH. It doesn't want to be funny. It doesn't want to be free. It only knows pain." Deadpool sat there, silent for once, staring at the corpse of himself. The collapsing warp howled around him, the Emperor's will tightening like a noose on every joke, every smile, every spark of humor. The Harlequin of Paradox, the god he'd accidentally birthed, began screaming as the Emperor's light struck it, unmaking its paradoxical existence one laugh at a time. Deadpool clenched his fists. "You don't get it," he whispered, looking up at the unseen sky. "Without laughter, you're already dead." He rose slowly, lifting the body of his other self. Around him, the warp was burning, folding in on itself, but his voice carried, defiant and small against eternity. "You can erase me, you can burn the jokes, but I'll always find a way back, because somewhere, someone still laughs when they shouldn't." The Emperor's voice answered from beyond comprehension, vast and unyielding. "Then laugh, fool, laugh as you die." The psychic storm hit him like a sun exploding. Deadpool vanished into light, torn between universes. The Harlequin of Paradox screamed and imploded. The warp sealed shut. And yet, faintly, in the silence that followed, something chuckled. A glitch, a whisper, a surviving panel refusing to be erased. Somewhere between reality and imagination, Deadpool's laughter persisted, waiting for one last act. The final panel had not yet been drawn. The kind of silence that follows the end of a universe, heavy, eternal, and absolute. The warp was gone. Its colors, once screaming across the void in impossible shapes, had been smothered beneath a sheet of golden fire. The stars hung motionless, stripped of their madness. Time itself paused, as if afraid to move forward without permission. And then, faintly, a spark. A small red shape tumbled through the ruins of nothing, broken, half-burned, but somehow still smiling. Deadpool landed face first on what might have been reality, if reality still existed. He groaned, peeled his melted mask from his face and looked up. Before him towered a throne of gold, stretching beyond sight. The air crackled with sanctified energy. Tens of thousands of candles burned in a cathedral that had no walls, each flame representing a soul still praying in the dark. The Emperor was there. Not the frail corpse entombed in metal and myth, but him in full, a radiant being of divine wrath, his eyes twin suns behind a crown of light. When he spoke, galaxies quaked. "You should not be here," the Emperor said. Deadpool looked around, dusted himself off, and shrugged. "Yeah, well, the multiverse said the same thing when I crashed the My Little Pony timeline. You people really need to work on your hospitality." There was no response, only the hum of psychic energy and the faint echo of distant, dying laughter. Deadpool walked toward the throne, his boots clicking on golden steps that shimmered with soul light. "So this is it, huh? The big man, the boss level, the source of all that grimdark energy." He twirled a sword lazily. "Gotta say, the place could use some curtains and maybe a taco stand." "You have infected the fabric of existence," the Emperor thundered. "Mocked what was meant to endure. You are an abomination born of paradox, a joke given form." Deadpool nodded solemnly. "You say that like it's a bad thing." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, their brilliance dimming for a fraction of a second, a god trying to comprehend insolence. "Do you know what you have done? You have taught the galaxy to question its suffering. You have made them laugh at tragedy. You have weakened the illusion that sustains them." Deadpool tilted his head. "Maybe I didn't weaken it. Maybe I just showed them it was never real." The air trembled. The throne pulsed. Every servo skull in the chamber screamed before bursting into flame. The Emperor rose, light cascading from his form like liquid gold. "There is no truth beyond pain. There is no freedom beyond duty. You cannot rewrite the nature of this universe." "Watch me," Deadpool said quietly. He drew his last remaining pistol, not a weapon of war, just a small, battered sidearm, painted red, covered in scratches. Its chamber held one bullet, one final joke. He raised it, but not at the Emperor, not at himself. He aimed it at us. The viewer, the audience, the unseen fourth wall that had tried to contain him since the beginning. "You guys still watching?" he said, voice soft but steady. "Here's the thing, every world I end up in, they take themselves so seriously, so tragic, so hopeless. And yeah, it's beautiful in its own sad way, but maybe it's okay to laugh before the lights go out." The Emperor's power surged. "You will not corrupt them." Deadpool smiled, the barrel gleaming with reflected starlight. "You can't stop a punchline once it's delivered." He pulled the trigger. But no sound followed. No explosion, no flash, no death. Instead, the universe itself shuddered. The golden light fractured like glass. The scene bled into sketch lines and ink strokes, color draining into monochrome. The galaxy began folding into panels, shrinking into pages, words scrawling themselves across the void. Everything, the throne, the Emperor, the stars, became art. The Emperor froze, suspended mid-light, half real and half drawn. "What have you?" Deadpool winked, just finishing the issue. The last candle burned out. The pages of the universe flipped faster and faster until there was only one left, a single panel, hand-drawn and imperfect. It showed Deadpool sitting cross-legged in the void, staring at a blank page. No dialogue, no narration, just him waiting. Then slowly, a line of text appeared beneath him, written in his own handwriting. "Every universe needs someone who laughs, otherwise it forgets how to hope." He looked up right at us, breaking the fourth wall one last time. "Guess that's my cue. Thanks for reading, kids. Remember, in a universe this dark, the only thing brighter than faith," he raised a finger gun and mimed a shot to his head, "is the punchline." Bang! Light filled the void. The comic burned away. And then, for a moment, just before the last trace of existence vanished, there was laughter. Not cruel, not